We're live. No, we're not live. I had very strange taste in movies, but Gone with the Wind was like, oh, we are live.
Hi, we're live.
Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday, which every
Is
day
it Tuesday? Is it?
I don't even. Every day blends into the next day. I feel like Maggie Smith on Downton Abbey. It's like, what's a weekend? It's like in the worst possible way. We don't have
That's a
weekends.
good accent.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll
Well,
do more of a little Pudlian. Is like Ringo, get your drums.
Yeah, I whatever I try and do British accent, it always sounds the same. And I try and make fun of Piers Morgan, and he ends up sounding like Maggie Smith, who ends up sounding like every other British person I do. But yeah, like so my Piers Morgan, because he goes Jojo, Jojo. That's how Piers says my name. By the way, can we talk about Piers? Because really fast before we get into
Sure.
the news, Piers had me on a few times, and he gave me shit. And at one point, he told me to pipe down. And I said, don't tell me to pipe down. And he said, I'll tell you to pipe down. And I said, don't talk to me like that. And then he went on social media and told his audience that I was banned from his show until I could learn to behave. And ever since then, they have reached out to me no less than 10 times to come back on his show. And I'm like, you told your people that I was banned for bad behavior. And now you want me to come back on. You're just not going to explain
Tell him
anything?
you'll come back on the show, but he's got to pipe down.
Yes, you've got to pipe down, Piers. So sorry. But yeah, so let's talk about another horrible British person. Let's talk about Gislaine. She's British, right? Like she's
I struggle with that name so much. There's it's the French version or the English version, but it's Gislaine or
yeah.
it's Maxwell, Silver Hammer. That's as soon as I hear Maxwell, I just think Silver Hammer, and that's it.
Yeah.
So Maxwell Silver Hammer came down upon her head, and she's trying to get out of prison any way possible and issuing demands by which Donald Trump will probably acquiesce because he doesn't want her talking. She'll probably have to sign an NDA, blame Biden for everything, and then come out and say Hillary Clinton was behind it all.
Yeah, well, did you see Dan Bingo Bongo? Sorry, we're gonna just segue to
Dan
another.
Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo, Dan Oingo Boingo Bingo Bongo said that whatever he's seen in the files that Hillary Clinton belongs in prison. But back to Gislaine, because Gislaine, yeah, she has a list of
It's
demands,
Gislaine.
one of which is full immunity. Full immunity. And she needs the questions in advance or she's going to plead the fifth. This is for congressional testimony. Has she been subpoenaed? Can she make demands? Do we make concessions to child sex traffickers? Is this what we do?
First of all, this is the one unifying issue of both the far right, the far left, and everybody in the middle.
Mhm.
I don't care who you are. Nobody wants to see a pardon issued to a convicted sex trafficker and predator who aided and abetted the most infamous sex trafficker and human trafficker of young girls since the Civil War. I mean, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, that's one of the things that Donald Trump really doesn't get is that all of his attempts, he's angered QAnon, he's angered MAGA, he's angered the far left. Donald Trump is a unifying force for this country. We're all unified against him, and particularly on this issue. And I find hope out of it. And at the end of the day, if they do give her a pardon, that's just, I mean, what the hell? Jeez, I mean, you can't say it won't happen because it's Donald Trump, you know, but I mean, seriously, no one has trafficked in young human girls like this since the Emancipation Proclamation became law.
Right.
And you're going to let her out of prison? Come on.
Right. Yeah, I guess there's a new Washington Post poll out about 1 in 4 saying that they're paying a lot of attention to this story and his polling again underwater on this issue where overwhelmingly across the political spectrum, people are disapproving of his handling of this issue. The issue that he won't let go away when he says you're stupid for still talking about it, he's not letting it go away.
He brought it up. He brought this up. This is a self-inflicted wound. And I've said before of Donald Trump, he's capable of healing from self-inflicted wounds, much like lower life forms that can grow back limbs. he's that lower life. But this one, he may have shot too close to his heart
Yeah,
because
what heart?
it's yeah, what heart? The heartless heart of the mindless youth of no sense. I can
Right.
go on for years with that guy. But
Yeah.
here's the thing about that is that in he has not only brought it up and he not only continues to discuss it, but he over and what's overlooked in all of this, I think, and reporters were to blame as well for this, but, he had the opportunity to make this right because he's been president, before. He had
Mhm.
4 years to address this the first time out of the box
Yeah.
and he didn't.
Yeah.
And he could have made all of this public then and did not. And he could make it all public then when he made if he made it all public then, we wouldn't be having this discussion now. But the fact of the matter is he's not gonna make it public because, Elon Musk was taken to task for saying it, but it turns out that little nerd was right. He's on the list.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, first of all, how Elon Musk knows who's on the list, but, I mean,
He
everybody has
can
that.
hack anything.
That's true.
He's
That's very true. Yeah, but even yeah, but to your point, like, he keeps stepping in it because
Oh,
yesterday
deep in it. It's like watching a kid jump into a mud puddle and finding out it's quicksand. They bye. That's it.
later.
See ya. Don, we hardly knew ye. Come back.
Did you know that quicksand porn is a thing? I just want to tell you, like, I don't know if you know that. Do you know who Olivier Knox, right? From the White House
Sure.
press corps. Okay,
Yeah.
so years and years and years ago, Olivier posted a thread that started as a square dancing thread, like a deep dive into the history of square dancing, which has white nationalist like origin stories, which I didn't know until that thread. And
And it's
somehow,
Irish too. It comes from the Irish a bit too, because when the Irish were dancing, they weren't allowed by the English to dance and be seen dancing. So they developed the Irish dancing was, and
oh,
so some of the Irish people in the United States adapted that to square dancing. It has a lot of influence, but you're right. The growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, I was aware of the racist part of it long before I was aware of any other part of it.
yeah,
And I
I
hated
was,
square dancing. I
well,
because I
see, yeah. I was the last girl picked. I never got picked. I didn't even get picked. I was just the last girl standing, and I always ended up with Jason Grossman. Rest in peace, Jason. He passed away many years ago, but poor Jason. I was the smelly kid, and nobody wanted to dance with nobody. Let me tell you, I know this is a big sidebar, but yeah, no, I was that very unattractive, stinky kid in, like, 4th and 5th grade. Yeah, my mom had left when I was really little, and my dad had 5 kids, 4 girls. Needless to say, hygiene wasn't at the top of the list, but I w yeah. I mean, it really like, if I got to school, like, with, 2 matching socks on that were, clean, it was a miracle. There's pictures of my communion where my tights have giant holes in the heel. But, anyway, I digress because this thread
well,
that
okay,
Olivia
then
posted.
let me digress and tell you there was a kid like that in our school, and he smelled like chicken noodle soup. And none of the girls that's
My
anyway,
god.
go ahead.
Did he have a nickname? I don't wanna know.
Yeah, we
Um,
called him Campbell's.
really?
Yeah,
God. Oh, that's oh, wow. I was Pepe Le Pew. Yeah, really creative. Um, I'm not traumatized. I'm not carrying any of that.
I
Needless
sense a bit of trauma there, Joe. Just
it's
just
fine. It's fine.
damn, now I gotta check.
No, I think I made up for it in college. But anyway, the whole point was that Olivier posted a thread about the origin of square dancing, and the thread eventually ended up somehow tying to what I said, quicksand porn. But anyway, I'm gonna find that thread. I'm gonna post it when I post this.
Wait a minute.
Olivier, if you're out there,
Quicksand porn, are you mean like people having naked sex in quicksand? Is that
I I don't know how that works, but I think the quicksand somehow factors in maybe as a threat or you know what? I don't know. I didn't actually
the one that
put
killed
that.
me years ago were the people who and I saw it on an HBO show, and I thought, "This can't be real," but it was. people like to dress up like horses and, and, and have kinky sex
Like
dressed like
furries?
horses. Yeah, like they plug something in their butt that simulates like a horse tail, and they
Wait,
prance around.
didn't
Yeah.
Madison Cawthorn do that? Didn't
How the hell we get on horse porn?
Sorry. Okay, okay. So so get, getting back on track because we're gonna put all this, the links to all of this horse porn, quicksand
Well, I
porn,
mean, we're talking about Trump and
queer dancing.
Epstein. It's only natural that we
It
go to
really
horse
is.
porn. That's
Right, yes, it's a natural thread that we all follow. But what he said yesterday, many of the things he said yesterday, getting back on track, was
yes.
that he never had the privilege of going to Epstein's island. He used the
I
word.
use that
Yeah.
in a column. This he never had the privilege. Most of us would say we were never cursed enough to go
Right,
to
right,
Epstein's Island,
right.
but Donald sees it as privilege, a privilege to see human trafficking unravel. So yeah, that one really kind of pissed me off.
Yeah.
I can say that cheesed me off good.
And another little nugget that came out of that shit show yesterday, I mean, there were so many, was that I don't think he's ever said before that he was invited to Epstein Island.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
was that the first time he ever said that?
I think that's the first time I've ever heard that, but I don't know if it's the first time he's ever said that. But I do know this, that it is he admitted that he's on the list.
Yes.
That's what, and the other thing that this is a lot like when they came and raided his, Mar-a-Lago,
Yes.
and they said, classified files. And he goes, well, there are no classified files. Then they raided it and they found them. They said, well, the FBI planted them. And then
Yeah.
he said, no, they're actually mine, but I did a Vulcan mind meld and I can do that. And they're
Yeah.
now not classified. So he's walking down that same path with this particular issue, saying, there was no Epstein. First he said there was an Epstein's list. Then Pam Bondi, who, by the way, was bought by Donald Trump for a mere $25,000 when she was
Oh, we could
uh,
talk about her all day long.
well, think about that. Think about that for a second. She was going to prosecute him for tax evasion in Florida for his failed universities.
Yeah.
He made a $25,000 deposit to
Mhm.
her account to run to her campaign. She dropped the charges against him. So, in effect, Donald Trump bought Pam. It's not, to me, shocking that Pam Bondi could be bought. It's just how damn cheap she is for
Yeah.
what essentially is the price of a DoorDash driver for a year. She became Donald Trump's DoorDash driver. So she said, no, there are no files. I've checked. They were on my desk. I said they were there, but they're not there. And then
Yeah.
Donald Trump comes out and says, well, they do exist. So they didn't exist. They do exist. They don't exist. Now they exist, but they were created by Biden. The same Biden who has to use an auto pen and is too flummoxed to say his own name, according to Donald Trump, is also, he may be delusional, he may be decrepit, but he's a criminal mastermind.
He's a criminal mastermind who has been playing such a long game that he created the fake files that he has never used, by the way.
Right.
He created the fake files that incriminate Donald Trump so that Donald Trump, after winning re-election, not against Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was forced out of the race. This is all 4D chess, folks. So not he this was the whole plan, that during Donald Trump's second term, these files were going to be revealed, and it was going to be revealed that he was in them because Joe Biden planted false information in there, by the way, with the help of Obama, Comey, Strzok, Page, Hillary, Bill Clinton, who's also in the files.
And a partridge in a pear tree. He found a drunk on the corner who helped out when no. Oh, by the way, and those hackers that are 18 now, when they were 10, they did this. That's what I'm going after, all of them.
Yeah.
It's a
And
terrible thing. I'm a smart guy. They've treated me so bad. I'm the greatest president ever. Yeah, I'm tired of listening to his crap.
And some like the Charlie Kirks and even the Laura Loomers now, some of the right wing, media sphere, they're like, oh, the Clinton's in the files. We have 100 names, Clinton's in the files, but then you got Theo Vaughn out there and Joe Rogan out there who are saying, no, we want to see this. You're not handling this well. This is, Joe Rogan is like, peace out. It wasn't the insurrection. It wasn't that he bragged about grabbing women by the pussy. It wasn't that he mocked a disabled reporter or the service of a POW. It was this for Joe Rogan when he was
Well,
finally like, done.
But I think that, well, 2 points. One, I think we missed the guy who really is selling it for me, and that's the QAnon shaman, the guy who looks like he was wearing the Moose Lodge hat from the Flintstones. You know, he no longer he says Trump is full of shit. You know, this is the guy who walks around with a Moose Lodge hat on and paints his face, and
Right.
he says Donald Trump has no credibility. I think Donald Trump's in trouble. But
Yeah.
more to the point,
Yeah.
it does if you wanna look at it seriously, this is the one thing that if you talk to people on the left or the right, and man, I've talked to MAGA supporters who said the sole reason they voted for Donald Trump is they actually believed he would be transparent and drain the swamp.
Ugh.
And everybody knows our government's screwed, blued, and tattooed. Often say we have two parties in this country. One has no heart, one has no head. Figure out which one's which because it switches on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, if you're a progressive or if you're a conservative, you want to know who the people are that you've elected to office and what they're doing. That's a
Yeah.
reasonable request. That
Yeah.
is an honest to God, reasonable request. We want to hold our representatives accountable. And this is a horrific thing that was done. This isn't like, this isn't like selling out adults. This is selling out young female girls. And I remind everyone that Gislaine Maxwell was behind it. She facilitated it. She was a predator. She searched for and found these girls and participated in it.
Yes, she
And
did.
that has, I mean, you may, if I don't like some of the false pretense of the Christians who follow Donald Trump. And I often think that anybody who believes in him, I've got a cheap igloo I can sell you too, That's that they're falling for the grift, but not
Yeah.
this time. Because at the end of the day, that's the one thing that they wanted. They
Yeah.
wanted transparency, and that's what we all want, by the way.
Mhm.
That is.
Yeah.
So, Donald Trump, you're missing the point. You can fool some of the people some of the time. You can fool all the people some of the time. But here's not the point where you're going to make an ass out of Lincoln. Sorry, it's not happening. You're doomed.
Right.
Now there are people have said he's doomed many times. This
Yes.
scandal will
My
kill him.
God.
This scandal will get him.
Yeah.
All I know is that when the QAnon shaman with the Moose Hat Lodge, Moose Lodge hat is marching against you, you got troubles, pal.
He lost Nick fucking Fuentes. Nick Fuentes, the Nazi that was at his Mar-a-Lago for dinner, he's out too. And like, they're all crazy, but he stepped in it again just now. Aaron Rupar posted, there's a question. It's just an audio file. I don't know who asked it. It's not
It's an
triggered.
otter file. I was listening to it earlier. It was really
Okay.
yeah. Go
Yeah, he
ahead.
said, the question is, you said yesterday your falling out with Epstein was over him taking some of the workers from your business, but your
Right.
administration in the past said you threw him out because he was a creep. Can you explain the discrepancy? And what is Trump's answer? It's the same thing. NBC is fake news. What else do you have? He's running again in circles, talking about it, both sides of his mouth, talking out of his asshole at the same time. He's creating more and more of these sound bites that contradict each other, and this is one pickle. Like you're right. Like with January 6th. And with the documents case, with the hush money case, he's always been able to spin the narrative. So even if it was self-contradictory, it didn't matter to the base. But this one, he cannot.
Right.
He's pinned down to his own comments yesterday that didn't square with the facts.
Well, and this is one I'm not prescient, I'm not omniscient, but I did say when he was reelected, I said he cannot harness the whirlwind that drove him into office.
Right.
He can't control it. So at some point in time, and look, Donald Trump, now, no matter, and we can rely on South Park for exposing his shortcomings. No matter, no matter what,
So fucking funny.
the PSA alone was worth the price of admission. They
Yeah.
had him both as the savior and the emperor with no clothes crawling across a desert, and it was so realistic. I laughed but anybody who says they were shocked, this is a digression. Anyone who says they were shocked about South Park hasn't seen South Park.
Right.
Not only have we seen Jesus and Satan in South Park before, but that wasn't even the first time that Satan had a gay relationship with a head of state. So there's nothing, but
Right.
but no matter how small his shortcomings are, he always manages at some point in time to step on it. And he has really stepped on it this time because he doesn't get it.
Mm.
and his closest minions, there's only one or two who really understand, and I don't think that's, Stephen Miller's one of them. He's just a full-blown Nazi. He's going full bore. Tom Homan doesn't get it. I'll tell you who does get it, little Marco Rubio
Oh,
and
yeah.
JD Vance. They
Yep.
get it. They understand because they're a little more they're traditional politicians. The rest of
Right.
the morons around him right now, Pete Hegseth is, putting on his makeup and wondering when he's gonna go live. I'm ready for my close up. That's
Yeah, his drones. Remember that where you're standing outside
yeah.
the oh my god, it's the drones
I
cosplay.
thought at any moment, Joe, I swear to God, I thought he was gonna tweak his own breast and go, "Oh, it's good, it's good." That's I oh, I love it.
Speaking of cosplay, Ice Barbie, Christy Noam is with down in Argentina with her side piece, Corey Lewandowski, filming like I don't know, like
Gone
raining
with
battles.
the wind.
It
Yeah,
did look. So this is when we opened this conversation because I was talking about it looked cinematography wise, it looked like Gone with the Wind, where she's like, it's like the silhouette of her galloping in the talking about this is her official account on Twitter and social media, and it's like, what the hell
it's
is
just
going
it's all a reality show. Every
on?
time Donald Trump says, and thank you for your attention, or thank you,
Yes,
to this. Well, that then he sounds like a bill collector. It sounds like what you get at the bottom of a bill. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
yes,
Screw you. But the other, stay tuned. They're always saying, "Stay tuned." They
yes,
all of them want to be in a. They think they're movie stars.
yeah,
Christy Nome does that. Pete Hegseth does that. There are
yep,
very few serious-minded people in there, and certainly not Donald Trump, who produces memes of him in a car chasing, Barack Obama as if he's O.J. Simpson. The man has, and they have the real sad part about it is there's a 25 or 26-year-old who's making those memes somewhere on the White House staff, and with no supervision. Just
right,
no supervision. Whatever you print, honey, we'll do it. Just go, go. We'll do it.
right.
That
Well,
that's where
well,
they are.
Well, that Barack Obama O.J. Simpson meme, did you catch what that 26-year-old missed, which was in one of the cars back in the distance, was that meme of J.D. Vance that got a Norwegian kid barred from entering our country?
Yeah.
The one where he's, like, got a Cabbage Patch face and a freaking perm? That meme of J.D. Vance, I don't think that was intentional. I don't think that the
No,
26-year-old
I don't
intern.
think it was either. They're they're not that bright.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I've dealt with, and look, I've said this often. The very worst press office I ever dealt with was Donald Trump's first office. Then the very worst press office I dealt with was Joe Biden's. And
Ugh,
then the very worst I've ever dealt with is this one. It's
mm,
been a continuous step down the ladder since the very first one I ever covered. The only Ronald Reagan, who was horrible, the only one who had a really good press office, there were two. Bill Clinton and George W. Bush had
huh,
two. They had some professionals and kind of knew what they were doing. And George W. Bush was never late. He'd say 2 o'clock. By God, it went off at 2 o'clock. And when I asked one time, I said, "Thank you for that." He said, "Well, you all have a life too. You all have things you have to do." There was a guy I didn't like him, but he was at
yeah,
least considerate. This
right,
guy, he has hired people who not only do not have experience, but are arrogant and ignorant about it. And when you ask him, like asking them about, for example, the big beautiful bill, took 30 minutes for him to change the minds of lawmakers who were going to vote against it. So naturally, the question is, what deals did he make? And we were
yeah,
told that's a private conversation. I said, yes, yeah. And many people said, yeah, but it was a private conversation about, that thing that he's going to sign. It's PL and then a number. That's public law.
yeah,
So you can't have a private conversation about a public law. What deals were made? We don't. Why should we answer that? You're just out to get him. No, this is an honest question. This isn't gotcha. Everything isn't gotcha. I
right,
don't start off playing gotcha. I start off seeking information, and these people will not supply it, and they're too stupid to understand that they are not benefiting the guy they're serving. And
right,
that's what really hacks me off. At some point, you pretend like you're a supporter of the president. You don't even know what you're doing.
right.
You're just making it tougher on the guy. But
Did
that's
you
because they got to kiss his ass.
Yeah, did you deal with Nicole Wallace? during W's tenure? Because wasn't she in his like comms office? I
Let's
feel like
see.
she was.
I think she was, but God, I spent in that during his administration. I covered him when he was the governor of Texas.
Oh wow.
So with my, I honestly, I got to bypass most of the press office during his, his, his tenure when I needed, because I was at the time, I think it was still at America's Most Wanted. And so we dealt with chief of staff, assistant chiefs of staff through that office.
Yeah.
I confess I didn't. So I think I may have run across Nicole once, but I was not a large figure in that office. I was just very happy that he was on time.
Yeah. Well, and since we're sort of on the subject of like what they're doing and how they're handling the media, I guess this is a good opportunity because talking to you, you have a specific insight on this. What CBS just did and is doing, and that whole bribe, and this like whatever this. I don't know, what is this accountability or something? This like this person who's supposed to oversee their content now, like this. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I think South Park got it right. I
Yeah.
want to see I want to see that PSA produced by CBS. By God, that would be great. It's an anathema to free speech, of course.
Yeah.
And what Colbert has done, come out against it, is here's the problem. There are twice the number of people on this planet as on the day that I was born, and a quarter of the number of reporters.
Mm.
Large companies dominate all of reporting. And Donald Trump wanted, well, Sherry Redstone wanted to sell Paramount. So she
Mhm.
knew that it had to go before government review. Donald Trump sued CBS and 60 Minutes for what? Editing editing an interview with Kamala Harris. How did he find out it was interviewed? By the way, folks, all interviews are edited, but because CBS had the wherewithal to print. If you want to see what the entire thing was about, here it is. And so they printed out an entire readout of what of what it was. Donald Trump read that, got upset, filed suit. This is called a SLAPP suit. Strategic
Mhm.
lawsuits against public participation. He didn't anticipating winning it. What he anticipated is what he got. It was leverage to make them bow and cave and
Yep.
scrape. And this is why we are compromised. If you cannot sit there and watch these press briefings, I almost get nauseous. And I'm sorry, I don't care if there are like maybe a handful of reporters in there and the rest of them are all paid actors. They're nothing more than public relations people for Donald Trump being paid by surrogates. They're not
Mhm.
reporters. If you
Right.
cannot walk into that briefing room, if you cannot be the head of CBS and question the president of the United States, asking honest questions, even if you like him, holding him accountable. That was one of the first things that Sam Donaldson taught me when I walked in. He said, "Brian, you'll never know who I voted for. I ask the same questions of all of them. I treat them equally." And
Yeah.
I have managed to piss off every press secretary I've ever. So I feel, I learned from the best, Sam.
Mhm.
But we don't do that. We're too busy kissing ass today. And the CBS thing, so much for the Tiffany Network. And I
Yeah.
remind everyone, they also bowed and fired the Smothers Brothers after they went after Nixon. And it was the
Mhm.
Smothers Brothers on their last show that they read a letter they got from LBJ, who was angry with the Smothers Brothers as well. He said, "But we should never lose our sense of humor.
Mhm.
We should never lose our ability to laugh at ourselves. We shouldn't be that self-important." Today,
Right.
people are too fucking thin-skinned. Donald Trump is as thin-skinned as tissue paper, and he's bound and determined to make sure that everyone bows to him. And that you mentioned what did he say yesterday about the fake news and he wants to prosecute all of them and make them lose their broadcast license. First of all,
Right.
he's a moron because the networks don't get broadcast license. Those are the people who have to get the license are the individual stations. So
Mm.
Donald, you're an idiot. But
Yeah.
he's always been an idiot. There, that's what I thought. Did I wrap it up or was it succinct enough or did I go
No,
on
no,
too long?
no, no, no. But it's yes, and what you were just saying, he's a narcissistic, right? But so much of what motivates him is retribution and revenge when somebody
Revenge.
right,
Yeah.
revenge. And it's not just ABC with Stephanopoulos, who they capitulated first,
Yes.
and now CBS with Colbert. But it's the colleges and universities as well, the law
Oh,
firms,
yeah.
right? We saw the capitulations on the law firm side, which is devastating and heartbreaking. But we saw Columbia bend the knee when Harvard was being a stalwart, right? Harvard was like, no, we're not going to bend the knee. We're not going to capitulate. We don't make deals with any governments anywhere ever. And now there's new reporting. George Conway is a very good friend. Heather Cox Richardson, also a friend. They are both alumnus. They went to school together, actually. Now Harvard is talking about settling for $500 million with Donald Trump because
Yeah.
Columbia did it, and Donald Trump has a woody for making Harvard pay because Harvard was saying no. And now Harvard, too, is about to bend the knee. What the literal fuck, Harvard? Like, what the fuck? And no one read On Tyranny in this country, even at Harvard?
Are you fucking kidding me? Wait a minute, that's the name of a show. Are you
Right?
fucking kidding me? Here's the thing that pisses me off about it. I get tired of all these people, Joe, who, well, not only capitulate, but how about the Republicans who have capitulated? They left the party. I'm sorry, stay and fight.
Yeah,
I'm a reporter. I'm staying and fighting. Now, they do their best to silence me, but I ain't going away.
yeah,
I'm not going to say, oh well, I'll join another crew or I'll do something else. No, this is a fight worth making.
yeah,
Getting into good trouble, right?
yeah.
As someone once said, as someone much brighter than me, and I still love him, and he was a great guy from Maryland, and he was one of the guys I love to sit down and have a conversation with. But
Mm,
the simple fact of the matter is you can see what happens when you stand up to Donald Trump. What's a good example of that? Well, I beat his ass in court 3 times.
yeah.
3 times I beat his ass in court, but I'm not the badass. I'll tell you who the badass is. It's Matt Parker and Trey Stone. He
Mm,
hasn't said one freaking word against South Park. Maybe it's because they were talking about his mushroom size, endowment, but he hasn't touched them, and they dared him to sue him. And
yeah,
the beauty of that was the true beauty of that was is they came out after the settlement and it's also they had a $1.5 billion deal,
yeah.
and the day after they announced that deal they stuck it to him. I mean, they raw dogged him, and they didn't even give him a reach around. It was deserved, and and it was beautiful, and it was a thing of, oh, it was a joy to behold.
Yeah,
Joy, rapture, said the scarecrow. That's how you treat Donald Trump. You punch a bully in the face. You
yeah,
do not allow them. And Harvard has better lawyers than Donald. Why the hell would you settle with Donald Trump? I want to see what happens with. It'd be interesting if it's Rupert Murdoch who eventually brings him down, because Rupert has as much money, if not, he's got more money and more
yeah,
power than Donnie.
yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, yeah, and what is so funny about the South Park thing is that if he wants to go after them, what he exposes literally is that we're gonna be talking about his teeny peen all the time. So, like, the Discovery would be fun as fuck, but yeah, and
Drop it
also
right here, Mr. President. We want to see. All right. We'll do it in camera in the judge's chamber. It's just going to be the prosecution and the defense. Drop trowel. We've got to see it.
yeah,
Well,
Stormy Daniels' testimony. But Rupert Murdoch is an interesting one for me because it's like, what is going on there? Like, welcome to the resistance, Rupert Murdoch. It's so bizarre. It is like the Wall Street Journal is like, oh, we got more. Oh, we're not done. You know what I mean? And it's very, very interesting to me that that of all the white hats, so to speak, that it would be Rupert Murdoch at this point. It's so very strange, but I mean, okay, I'll take
well,
it.
yeah, but here's the thing. No matter how much Donald professes that he loves someone or they love him, it's all transactional.
Yeah,
Donald Trump doesn't have a legitimate he doesn't even have a legitimate relationship with his kids. I
right.
know for a fact, uh, this is one thing that Michael Cohen told me when we were working on a book together. He said his kids don't like him. They said, whatever happens, Michael, please, help us. We don't wanna end up like our dad." Well, it
Michael's on
turns out,
this. Michael's here, by the way. He's in the chat.
"Hey, Michael." So I mean, that's one thing he told me, is that they didn't wanna end up like him. So it's all transactional.
Yeah,
And so Donald Trump will eventually run afoul of everyone that he's had a relationship with because he doesn't have real human emotions. Michael could tell you that better than anybody. He had to deal with him for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Mary Trump will tell you that. She tells me often, she goes, Brian, there is no worst with Donald. It just gets worse every day. And I've never forgotten both of them, the advice that they both gave me about Donald. And I've had my own experiences with him. But
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch, I think Rupert has just had enough of Donnie. We'll wait and see. Does he settle? Is it a game? Everyone likes to pretend like Donald Trump is playing fifth dimensional, chess. He can't play one-dimensional checkers. He skids on the seat of his pants and
Mm.
has for years.
Yeah.
And he just happens to be in touch with the right people who can help him out at the time he needs them the most, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Hello, Elon? Elon?
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Elon?
point. Yeah.
Elon? Yeah.
Yeah, what Harvard said in their statement, or in this reporting anyway, is that they were considering this because they want to ease the road for future interactions with Donald Trump for themselves. So they're in advance, they're expecting that if they capitulate now, that it'll make things easier for them down the road, as if that's how things work with Donald Trump, as if he doesn't come back for more every single time. This was my problem with Gretchen Whitmer when she did all the hugs and all the stuff. He's not going to stop there. When you give him anything, he will get accustomed to knowing that you're going to give him something, and
Yes.
he's going to come back for more. This is what's going
Give
to
him an
happen.
inch, he'll take a mile. He was spoiled as a kid. He was
Yeah.
he's that kid on the playground that, would just take and take and take until somebody thumped him in the nose. And
Right.
that's what you gotta do. There's
Yeah.
just no other way to deal with Donnie. I'm sorry. I don't care who he's a powerful man. He's the president of the United States. Well, my taxes pay his salary, which
Yeah.
means he works for me, which
Mhm.
means he's my employee. So I want answers, accountability, and we all should remember that.
Yeah.
Leadership is one thing, accountability is another. And you cannot have leadership without accountability. Without accountability, unbridled, you end up with fascism and all the other wonderful isms that you can end up with, and the morons that you end up with, like Hitler and Stalin and everybody else. And Putin. Never forget
Right.
Putin. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and now the rot, the from the head down of this, a lack of accountability fucking fish, none of them are accepting accountability for anything. I mean, Donald Trump is allergic to it. The buck never stops with him. It never has, never will. I know. Remember, I don't take responsibility during COVID, right? It is what it is.
Yes,
Now you
I
got,
was the one who asked him that question,
oh
by the
shit,
way.
that was you?
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
said
God.
I
I
said, "Do
didn't
you
know that
take
was
it?
you.
Do you take any responsibility for these deaths after you said it was waning?" And I remember first it was out on the he was walking. It was chopper talk, and it was the day before the first death. And he said, "It's winding down. There's no problem. We've done the right thing, and so we're going to take it easy." And then 2 or 3 weeks later, we had several hundred deaths. And I said, "You said this to me last 2 weeks ago. Do you take any responsibility?" "I take no responsibility." And then from then on, that was his watchword, and many reporters asked him the same question and got the same answer. He,
Yeah.
of course, takes no responsibility. And speaking of which, while we're talking, it just flashed that Maxwell says she'll testify with major concessions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's that full immunity thing. But
Yeah.
that question when you asked him, I didn't know it was you, but I remember exactly where it was in the Rose Garden. I remember
Yep.
Mike Pence was on the platform with him at the same
Yep.
time. And people were talking about them sharing the microphone, which whatever, they were so stupid. I mean, that's how they the super spreader event and Amy Coney Barrett's thing. But I remember that because I remember thinking, are you fucking kidding me? Did he actually just say that? But the
Gee,
lack of
you and I said the same thing at the
yeah,
same time.
yeah, yeah,
But he heard me. Are you
right.
fucking kidding me?
Right, right, right. But
I
now
told him if they let this guy in here, nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
but now the Secretary of Hot Tub Sextation, because that's what I call Sean Duffy because of his years on friggin' reality TV. Now he's saying that all the shit that's happening with our airplanes, like dropping 500 feet because there's a friggin' World War II plane coming at them, or catching on fire, or whatever's happening, falling out of the sky, crashing in the Potomac. Like now Sean Duffy's like, oh, that's not me. That's Pete. That's not me. That was the last administration. Like, at no point is anybody ever going to accept responsibility, accountability for any of their actions because the fish rots from the head down, and Donald Trump will never, ever
Well, that's
accept
because they're all
accountability for
shooting
anything.
bleach into their body. That's why.
Right, exactly. And we are not gonna have time necessarily to get to it today, but I do wanna talk about Bove. Is that how you say his name? I wanna say Bove, but it's Bove or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gonna I have to get my
Well, let's
kids
talk about the guy with a worm in his head.
Who's that?
Oh, come on, R.F. Kennedy Jr.
Oh, good God,
Helping.
I forgot about the worm. I forgot about the dead worm.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I went for a mammogram yesterday. I'm not gonna say where. Well, I went for a mammogram
Well,
yesterday.
we know where you get the mammogram. I mean,
What
it's an
what like,
oh,
my
you mean where
boob.
you physically went to get it.
Yeah.
We all know what a mammogram is. Well, Donald Trump
I
probably doesn't, but
I showed up and I, like, gave him my foot. They're like, "What are you doing?" No, but, let's just say whatever, medical center or radiology place, whatever it was, we were talking because you make small talk when your tits are hanging out. It's just what you do. And I said, "Well, God
now
willing,
there's that should be on a T-shirt. Make small talk when your tits are hanging out. That's sorry, that was too easy. That was low hanging fruit.
well, I served him right up there for you.
Yeah, you
But
did.
I said, "God willing," I
Tit for tat, but that's
Jesus Christ. I feel like such a boob now. Okay.
well, let's get abreast of the situation.
Wait, hold on. I need to grab a cup. What size is this cup? This cup. Okay. That looks like a okay. Anyway, sorry. The text I said, God willing, my insurance covers this because it might not in a little while, thanks to brainworm. And the one tech goes, "Oh, that RFK Jr. is such an idiot." And I was like,
Yes, he is.
Amen. Amen.
And
Amen.
so is Kristi Noem, and so is Pam Bondi, and so is Tom Homan, and
Oh,
all of them. But one thing
God.
we really need to watch, and this is a serious matter. Donald Trump, if you think Joe Biden slid into senility, Donald Trump plunged into it. This is not the same Donald Trump I covered in the first administration,
Yeah.
okay? Donald Trump has, and I'm not a doctor, I can only tell you from observing that this is not the same guy with the mental faculties that he had in the first administration, and he's not running the show. It's Susie Wiley, and more importantly, it is Stephen Miller. All that domestic stuff, Stephen Miller is one of the few people who have unlimited pass. He's got a get out of jail free card. He can walk in and out. He's got walk in privileges to the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
he's at the end. He's there for everything, and he and Susie Wiley are running the show as well as the other cabinet members are running their show. It's not Donnie.
Yeah.
Donnie is barely capable of putting. I mean, sometimes it sounds like when he's talking now that he sat through a bunch of briefings and he's just randomly spitting out little bits of information that he's been told, and they don't necessarily string them together. They don't necessarily make sense. There's
Mhm.
I mean, just take a look at what he said about Europe arming Ukraine. Well, we're arming Ukraine, but there that whole thing about 17 missiles and it made no sense. Or
No.
listen to him when he was talking yesterday. It's gibberish, folks. It's
The
frighteningly bad.
the Gaza stuff and the
Oh,
Netanyahu stuff, that was first of all, they didn't even say thank you. It's just friggin' sociopathic, right? Like, but
thank
again, like,
you for
yeah,
saving us. Yeah, not happening,
like,
Don.
where's Sally Struthers to come along and like, thank you for but what he said, what I see on the when asked if there's people starving in Gaza, because Netanyahu said they're not, right? He said, "What I've seen
Well,
on
and
the
we can
tele."
trust Bibi. Yeah,
Right, of
that's
course. But his answer was very telling. He said, "From what I've seen on the television, those kids sure look hungry." Like, that sounds like the guy who sits at the service bar at the strip mall Applebee's at 2 in the afternoon just to harass the wait staff that's, like, just trying to do their side work with, like, conspiracy theories and what his, uncle posted in a Facebook fucking chat. Like, that doesn't sound like someone who has access, not that he reads the Daily briefings, but this doesn't sound like someone who has access to any information, let alone information a president should have.
He has only access to what is told him. He doesn't read. And remember, there was when he lost a Supreme Court decision, 9-0. He was in the Oval Office. Here is a telling moment, folks, and this tells you exactly what information he has available to him. He was sitting there and he says, "Wait a minute, we won that, didn't we?" And Stephen Miller spoke up and said, "Oh, yes, absolutely. We won that," because that's what they told him. Donald
Yep.
Trump believed it, and he spits that information back out. The fact of the matter is, Donald Trump doesn't know what's going on. He only knows what he's told and sees on TV, and he's a voracious viewer of television and
Right.
always has been. In
Right.
fact, when I first met him years ago, that was the first thing he said to me standing out in front of Trump Tower when I was doing a piece for a New York magazine show. And he says, I recognize you from TV. I was like, yeah, I recognize you from TV. So the fuck what?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's where he gets a lot of his information, to your point. But where's Jake Tapper? Hey, Jake. Hi. You want to
Well,
find
I'm
about
waiting for
this?
that. He's gonna go on an apology tour
Yeah.
3 years from now. "Sorry, we should have noticed it at the time that he was slipping." Well, Jake, some of us did, idiot. You're the one that didn't. I that whole that whole tour that he took about, we should have noticed Joe Biden. Dude, you weren't in the press briefing room. I was. We asked questions. You were the one that you interpreted it how you wanted to. Now you want to mea culpa yourself to death? Go bollocks yourself. I'm not saying that, but
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going to be
yeah.
about that.
I
But
I think that Jake did irreparable harm to his, credibility, at least from in my circle of peers, and whatever. But I
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and I the it's not going away either, because whenever we see this stuff with Kankles, Mick Epstein, like, sitting there, like, losing his mind in front of all of us to see, everyone always says, "Hey, Jake Tapper." They tag Jake Tapper, like, "Where's the book on this?" And oh, you know how much I love Joe Biden, and I'm very much, a Joe Biden
Yeah.
super fan. And I will defend till the day that I die that in December, when I had the unbelievable privilege of being in the Roosevelt Room and then the Oval Office and chatting with him, he was slower in his step than the last times I'd seen him, but he remembered things, details about my little town in New Jersey. When I said the name of the town, he knew something famous that was made here, and he said it off the top of his head just like that. Nobody prepped him on it. He knew all this stuff. He said where Jill was from. He's slower in
You
his
just didn't
step.
see the
Yeah.
earpiece of the people in the back room
Yeah.
giving.
Right.
No,
Well, that'd be weird. But yeah. No,
but
but
you're
yeah.
to your point, and you make a great point. But here's the thing: I'll tell you about Joe Biden. The first time I interviewed him was in 2000, and I was doing a book about a friend, well, an acquaintance of his, who had been involved in it was a murder. He was a former I think he was former assistant secretary of state or attorney general in the state of Delaware. And he kind of tried to implicate every other politician in Delaware on this. It was this Thomas Capano. Look it up, folks. This guy was a horrible guy. And he had killed one of his girlfriends. He had several. He was cheating on his wife. And there's a great story there. We could do an hour on that particular show. But I went to interview Joe Biden and I asked him about Capano. And he says, "Oh, you mean the Soprano?" And it was in a scrum outside of the Senate. And one of the reporters said, "Well, he's always making gaffes." I go, "Well, actually, that wasn't a gaffe. That was kind of a nice pointed, because that's what they did. They called, the Capanos thought they were the Sopranos." But in all the times I've interviewed Joe Biden, he has had a propensity to make a gaffe now and then.
Mhm.
That's who he is. We knew it. You would ask the question a second time, he'd clean it up.
Yeah.
What his people did was a great disservice to him. That's why I say his press office was horrible
Mhm.
because they did. And I went in when before Karine was the press secretary, the first press secretary. I said, "You don't need to come out and speak for him. Let him come out once every 6 weeks. Let him speak for 10 minutes in this briefing room. He's better on these issues than you are." And I was told, "Well, he does gaffe," and I go, "We know that.
Yeah.
Those of us who've covered him know that." By covering him up and not putting him out there and not having faith in him, they destroyed his candidacy.
Yeah.
That is a simple fact that cannot be denied. Was he slower? Of course he was slower. I didn't like seeing that, but that first debate that killed him, did anybody watch what Donald Trump did?
Right.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph, at least Joe Biden grasped the facts. I
Yeah.
mean, I personally didn't like the idea that there were 2 old men talking about their golf game on
Yeah.
stage.
That was
That
bad.
was not good. But
No.
if Joe Biden, anytime I've had an interaction with him, and up into the last interaction I had with him in the last week of his presidency, he was cogent enough to know details.
Yeah.
That's not the case with Donald Trump.
Mm.
I have been pissed off because I think that we had, everyone wants to blame Joe Biden for, Donald Trump's, including a couple of people on TV, that he's more responsible for getting Donald Trump reelected than anyone. I won't mention who the comic was, but he used to be with Colbert, and he still has a show. But I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to say that the fact of the matter is they lost a great opportunity, and the president lost a great opportunity to make his case, because if they had just put him out there for 10 minutes every 6 weeks, and at the end of the 10 minutes, Joe, all he could have said was, "Hey, I'm an old man. I got to go take a nap. Catch you next time."
Yeah.
When he had the problem he had on the stage in the first debate, people will say, "Well, that's okay. I've seen him on stage for the last 3 or 4 years. He's fine. He just had a bad night." But you
Yeah.
couldn't do that because they hit him. So there's my
Yeah.
take on that for what it's worth.
Yeah, and man, it is heartbreaking because we lost everything. We lost everything,
Well, we
and here we
lost
are.
a democracy.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is anybody who says, this is a constitutional crisis, our democracy's on the line. Hey, pal, that's in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
We've already lost the Constitution. The Congress has ceded all of its power to Donald Trump.
Oh,
The
yeah.
judiciary is right there. His minions in the Supreme Court will give him whatever he wants. And what's
Mhm.
funny is he's talking about now about prosecuting Obama
Yeah.
and Biden. And I'm going, gee, well, SCOTUS gave you this wonderful thing called unlimited immunity. Good luck with that, pal, because they were former presidents. They get it too.
Yeah,
So,
which is why they're gonna go after Susan Rice, and they're gonna go
yeah,
after Hillary, and they're gonna go after Strzok and Page and Clapper and Comey. Yeah, they're gonna go after all of those people and say that they can't touch Obama because he's, former president, and same with Biden, but they're gonna go after everybody else. But we should definitely wrap. I just wanna say that, like, just the last thing to your point about Joe Biden not being out there, a really good friend of mine who's not a Democrat, but not a Republican, somewhere in the middle of this stew. One of the criticisms that he had of Biden, and one of the things that he thinks was a big Achilles heel, exactly to your point, was that he seemed like he was hidden. And when you're hidden from view, any narrative that the opposition wants to shape about you, and we had narratives that were shaped about him from within. Any narratives that are shaped about you when you're hidden, they'll stick, because how are you going to contradict it if you're not
that's
out there showing?
beautiful. That's beautiful because that's exactly why Donald Trump is having trouble with Epstein. It's
Right,
hidden. It's hidden.
right, right.
That's so yeah, you're right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. All I want to say to all my Democratic friends is, the Republicans have lowered the bar. Can you do better than a guy who endorses a female, young female sex predator? Can we do better than that? Is there somebody somewhere who could crawl over that low bar? That's all I want.
Yeah, well, all the Veruca Salts all over the country had to have their dream date in the Canada, which fucking ended up with as a rapist who best friends with a child sex trafficker. Yeah, way to go, America.
What an image you just put in my head.
Well, on that note, thank you to we have 1,200 people, cousin. We have 1,200 people at 2:25 on a Tuesday afternoon.
Woohoo!
That's remarkable. That makes me feel so good because, like, it's cathartic for me to talk to you. It's cathartic for me to see the comments and all the hearts, and to see this community here lifting up these conversations, engaging with this information. That gives me so much freaking hope, you know?
Well, now you gotta promote what we're gonna be doing after Labor Day. You just
Well,
said it.
you teased it. Now you have to.
So it's called Common Sense with Joe and Brian, or Brian and Joe, and we're gonna be talking about stuff other than politics too.
Yep.
But we'll be talking about politics and all the fun that you can have in catharsis.
Yeah. And part of that catharsis on the podcast that's gonna be dropping after Labor Day is venting, ranting, releasing, like, the shit that you're like, has nothing to do with politics, just those pet peeves that you have. Like, I have this pet peeve about people leaving one bite of every little element of their meal on their plate. I don't understand that. I don't
I
understand
don't
that. Why would
understand
you
why
do
you
that?
get in the left lane and you don't pass. What the hell's wrong with you people?
Right.
Pass, pass.
Or the people who line up 4 abreast on a city sidewalk and walk like
Yes.
turtles, like sloths. Like, what are you doing? I need to get by you. I can't get by you if you make the freaking Berlin Wall
Right,
across
and
the
you act like there's
sidewalk.
nobody, and the people who are talking on their I thought they were schizophrenic at first. Everybody's talking on Bluetooth, on the phone while they're walking, the wireless, and here's one of my favorite ones. Why are you standing in line at McDonald's wondering what to order? Jesus Christ, taking 5 minutes to look at the menu? It's McDonald's. It's the same damn thing. Get
Right.
out of line. But that's
Yeah, and as a former waitress, my trolls love to troll me for working at Sizzler, which was my first ever waitressing job. It's like, yeah, that was a great job. But as a former waitress for decades, I could hear my kids eye roll. One of my big pet peeves, and folks, don't take offense to this, just as a waitress, this drove me crazy. When I would say thank you to a table at the end of serving them, if they said you're welcome, I was like, no, that's not the right answer. The right answer is thank you. Thank you because I served you. And then you're
right.
supposed to acknowledge that I did that when I thank you for your patronage. Thank you for your service. Not you're welcome. I'm sorry. It's a pet peeve. I have 770,000 of them.
Oh.
That one is somewhere in the middle, but my God, not you're welcome. No.
No, I was a waiter in college for a while, and I remember one time that exact same thing happened, and I was like, "What are you saying you're welcome for? Tip me." That's I don't give a shit about your welcome. Give me the damn tip. I'm a starving college kid. I need the money.
Seriously.
The
Seriously.
biggest tip I ever got, by the way, I overheard there were these 2 women that were talking, and they were probably mid-50s, and they were complaining how, guys didn't look at them anymore, and they were feeling bad about that, and, they just felt like they had aged, and I walked up to them, and they ordered a drink, and I said, "May I see you some ID, please?" And
Shameless.
yeah, I was absolutely shameless, and
That
they
was it.
loved it.
That was all they needed. I get that. I get that. I mean, so nobody cards me for anything anymore except my AARP card they might ask
Yeah,
for. But
if they card me, it's usually because I've been pulled over and it's a cop. That's
seriously. But yeah, I think the biggest tip I ever got, I used to work at this place called the Atlantic Grill in New York City. It was on 73rd and 3rd. I think if you guys know it, I don't know. I think it might still actually be there. But we had this one guy would come in every night towards closing, and everyone knew he was going to tip the total of the check. You were going to get whatever he spent in a tip. And that guy
Oh,
spent
yeah.
hundreds of dollars. He was just rolling in it. So we'd fight to take that guy in our, like, I was like, sit him, put him in my section, put him in my section. He would tip no matter what it was. Every time he came in, the entire bill, you got in a tip. It was awesome. I mean, I imagine having that kind of money. I wouldn't mind that so much. It'd be great.
You gotta love that.
Yeah.
The ones I don't like is they calculate it down to the dime what their
Oh
tip is gonna
God.
be, and then, they give it well, first of all, I don't tip off of taxes, but I don't tip 20% either. I'll usually tip 25, 30. I'll over
Yeah.
tip.
Yeah.
But, what I remember one time is the guy calculated it to the penny, like back then it was 15, 20% was the, really good
Yeah.
tip, still is. And he goes, "Okay, so that's exactly $10.01 that I'm
Oh
gonna
my
tip
God.
you," or something like that. He goes, "I
God.
need change for a quarter." I said, "Keep the quarter." So
Jesus. God. Yeah. People.
my gift to you.
Right? I'm so generous. I once had a guy at a restaurant here in Jersey who left a big zero with a slash through it, and I went out to the parking lot with his receipt, and I was like, 0? $0? And my boss was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, He left me a big fat series. He said, "You're gonna get fired." I'm like, "Fire me." He didn't.
Yeah,
He
right?
never fired me.
I'm working for tips.
Right.
So apparently I'm working for free.
Well, not only that, but because you do have to, well, Donald Trump can say this all he wants now, but I did
Yes.
have to get taxed on, I declare a certain amount so I could meet an hourly, the master minimum wage. So I was actually paying to wait on tables who didn't tip me.
That's right.
What?
That's
Yeah.
yeah, a couple of places I worked at as a waiter, you actually would pay to work
Yeah.
because you get it back on tips and you would declare the
Yep.
minimum wage.
Exactly.
Which and I mean, so Donald Trump's BS about that just drives me insane too, but
And yeah, it's all bullshit for the gaslight everybody. But okay, so we went off on a little rant there. We had a couple of tangents, everything from quicksand porn to, boob grabbing, but, there was a lot of substance in the middle, and this is the kind of stuff with a little more structure you'll be able to expect from our podcast when that launches after Labor Day, which I'm very excited about.
I am too. Cousin, it'll be a great fun.
Yeah, well, I'm so grateful to the universe for putting you in my world. From the second I met you
You
in
too.
Chicago, it was family. That's
Yeah.
what it is. So I love you guys. We got 1,300 people now. Thank you, all of you. And if you're not subscribing to Brian on Substack, you have to subscribe to Brian on Substack. He's a genius and a gift. And you are.
I didn't even pay her to say that.
Well, that's the lie. You gave me the change of a quarter, but nonetheless. It's true though. And what you do, and I'm gonna fangirl, like, but what you do is you infuse a sense of humor in this insanity, this soup we were talking about,
Yeah.
that helps people feel like they're not losing their minds in the just dismal sort of like sadness and depravity of it all. And I cannot tell you how important that is. I am trying to tell you how important that is, but it makes a big difference. I mean, I can honestly say that it makes a big difference.
Laugh or cry, we'll be here all week. Try the veal. You gotta laugh. That's
And tip your waiter. All right. Well,
tip your waiter. Tip the wait staff. They're working hard. I'm telling you, tough work,
we just did the same. Okay. All right. With that, we'll see you guys next Tuesday, somewhere in the 1:30 time frame. We will be here on Substack until we officially launch the podcast, and then we'll post clips here, and we'll still do lives because we have to.
There you
Okay.
go.
Well, thanks, cousin, and have a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Take care of your kids. I love you. Take
Thanks.
care.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.